Yeah, it's like an experiment. I'm sure if anybody else wanted to get water, somebody in the audience would be thrilled to bring some water up, maybe. I don't know. It might not happen.
23 waters, please.
I'm good, though. All right, so welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thanks for everybody at home that's watching. This is, getting devs fired up for your stream. And it's some of it is just sort of best practices. Some of it is insight. We have, you want to look over this way more than this way. We've got an enormous amount of talent and experience over here. And hopefully what we can do is bring a little bit from the developer side and a little bit from the streamer side on how everybody can work together. And we'll just do short little introductions for everybody. I'm Zeke Sparks. I'm the executive producer at Blue Mammoth Games. We make Brawlhalla. I've been making video games for about a decade, a little bit more. Actually, I did pen and paper games before that. So I've basically been making games forever. And then we'll just kind of go down the line.
I'm Bacon Donut. I've been playing games forever. I've been a full-time broadcaster on Twitch for 3 years. And I was a web developer before that and worked a lot with marketing departments and whatnot. So I feel like just business experience in general kind of helps me understand how to interface between groups or whatnot. And yeah, that's me.
Hi, I'm Jess. I am a full-time variety broadcaster on Twitch, and I also do something called influencer relations management. So I connect game devs and publishers to the streamers, YouTubers, Hitbox, Beam, all of those different things to play their games for something called earned influencer marketing.
Also perler beads.
Yeah, I also do a bunch of creative art casts and cooking and all this stuff, so yeah.
Hi, I'm Mike. I wrote about video games for like a decade at places like Gamasutra and Kotaku and Pocket Gamer, and then I was the loud British one at Tiny Build, and now I'm at publisher and developer Ripstone Games.
Hi, I'm Will's loud. I'm Eat by Diction, Nick. I've been a full-time streamer, YouTuber for about 5 years. Before that, I was an unemployed digital film school graduate, so I don't really know why I'm up here, but hi, good to see you.
And then we have there's one more panelist that you might have seen on the notes, and you might notice isn't here, but Casper is embroiled in the PJ Sultan tournament, and so hopefully everybody can join with me in rooting against him. I think in the spirit of PJ Sultan, since he couldn't make the panel he helped build.
He should pay for his sins.
That's
by
right.
losing.
That's right. So hopefully, Casper won't make it. Actually, we love him. Hopefully he goes all the way. But he was a big part in getting this together, so we're thankful for him. But so I want to start just kind of with sort of some of the basics. And one of the hardest things that I think streamers have to deal with is just getting in touch. Like, how do you start? You're streaming, you like what you're doing, you like some game that's coming out, you want to do something with the developers, and the question is, well, where do you start? And there's a number of ways to go about it, and each company is different. But some of these are just very straightforward. You want to make sure that you're looking for the right person. So go find out information about the company. A lot of times companies will have contact info right on their page. I mean, it seems really simple, but not all companies do that either. And so sometimes you have to do a little bit of sleuthing. Stalk them on Twitter a little bit. Mike, you've got a ton of experience of getting contact in.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things is that a lot of streamers don't realize that we want you to get in touch with us. It's not like, from a lot of streamers I talk to, they're like, oh, but developers aren't going to talk to me. They're not actually going to want to give me games. We really want to give you all of the games in the world. We will give you as many games as you need. It's funny the conversations I have where streamers' faces are like, wait, you're just going to give me games now? I don't understand what this is. And I think it's still a weird relationship that people are still trying to work out between developers and streamers. I think for like some of the bigger AAA companies, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. I'm sure you guys can talk about that. But for kind of like these indie publishers like ourselves, and just for a lot of smaller developers as well, that are sort of 1-2 man teams, you just get in contact with them. They've always got contact information on their websites or on Twitter. You can even just tweet at them. So it's really very easy, actually.
Yeah, and I mean, touching on that, like it's the relationships between all the different parties on Twitch are some of the best and like most synergistic, and I hate that I used that word, but
Synergy.
Everybody wants it to happen. Everybody wants, developers want to see their games being played. People or viewers want to watch people playing games. Streamers want to play the games. It's such a good building experience. And I mean, I don't think that I've ever, we're a small company, so we're pretty flexible. I've never said no to any streamer that's gotten in touch with me and asked if we could do something. It's not always something huge, but I'm always going to say yes. There's no reason for me to say no. I don't want to do anything with you. That's crazy.
No, and in fact, as well, like it works if so. I think another thing that a lot of streamers don't realize is that most developers and publishers are constantly watching and trying to find streamers who are playing their games, right? So a good developer or publisher will literally just have a column in TweetDeck or whatever, probably multiple columns, searching for people who right now are playing their games. And if you are playing one of our games and you tweet at us, or you put the name of the game in a tweet or whatever, we're immediately seeing that. And we're immediately jumping into your stream and we're checking it out. And if it seems like you're pretty cool, then we're going to get in contact with you. And we're going to try and say, hey, do you want to play some of our other games? We're going to share your stuff. We'll host you. There's loads of stuff. If you don't ask in the first place, or you kind of stream one of our games and we have no idea, then there's no way for us to be helping you, because it's a two-way street, right? You guys are playing our games, and that's amazing for us. We want to show our appreciation in return and actually share what you're doing. So again, it really is just a case of please just actually talk to us and show us that you're interested in our games, and we will kind of be beneficial to you as well.
And I think kind of the biggest trick I can think about on this side for streamers is think about when you're structuring it, when you're trying to get in touch with the developer, think about how can I make it as easy as possible for the developer to say yes. So the email that you send the request from is the same email that you have listed on Twitch or on YouTube or whatever. So I can immediately just look at the email and look at the other email and say, oh, okay, nobody's trying to scam for a key. This is an actual legitimate person. I mean, that happens a lot.
Which is a thing.
Yeah,
It's
a
a huge deal.
And then kind of avoid sending an email that says, hey, would you be interested in doing something? Give me an idea. Give me something. It could be as simple as, hey, can you retweet this? Or, hey, can I get a key for X? But if you give me what you're looking for, then I have a moment right there where I can read it, and I can either say yes on the spot and reply with whatever it is, or I can say, oh, well, we can't do that, but how about this other thing? And so it just kind of cuts an extra loop out of the process. Like, just think about it. Your job is to make it as easy as possible for the person who reads your email to say yes. We're gonna come back to that, I think, multiple times. It's just kind of a good mindset to be in.
Yeah, just to jump in on that, actually. So the thing is that, not even exaggerating, more than 99% of the emails that we get are from people pretending to be somebody else when it comes to YouTubers and streamers.
I do that all the time just to fuck with you guys.
I bet you really get it.
It's all just me.
Yeah. So the problem now is that if someone gets in touch with us, we can't just immediately give a key to the person. We have to then go verify you are the person. And it's a tricky one because for bigger streamers, they maybe don't want to share their email address around because then they're going to get a bunch of crap in it. But for mid-level streamers, it's really, really useful for my job. If you can just make my job so much easier if you put your email address. So a lot of streamers now in their Twitter handle just put this business email : and then there's the email address. That's amazing for me because I can immediately just click on your Twitter and it's right there and I can go, okay, this is who they say they are. But I have to shift through hundreds of crappy emails from people who are not who they say they are to find the real people. So if you can just make that easier for me, that would be great. Thanks.
And it doesn't have to be all online either. What you're doing right now is perfect. You have a fantastic opportunity here to meet people in person. And everybody in this industry is just super passionate. Everybody in this industry is here because we want to be here. So it's like I had the reverse thing when I first started, because again, we're a small indie studio, and I was like, well, how am I going to reach out to streamers? I'm like, I can't just go up to Bacon Donut and be like, hey, how's it going? Do you play games? We make games. Yeah, it turns out you can do exactly that because he loves playing games and he loves talking to people that play games. And it goes the other way. People coming up to devs, like devs aren't like, oh, I hope nobody comes and talks to me about my game that I've been putting all of my love into, So it's going out and meeting people. It's super beneficial, and to that end, have a business card, because at these conventions, you're going to see thousands. You're going to meet thousands of people. If you put a business card in their hand or anything like that, when they go home, they have something that will remind them of what's going on, and then most likely they'll just follow up, even if it's just a hey, thanks for coming out, and that can lead. Who knows where that leads to. So it's get out, meet people. Exactly what you're doing right now. Perfect.
Zach, I hope I'm not overstepping here, but I would love to get an idea of who we're talking to.
Great.
So I would love to know, just by show of hands, how many of you consider yourselves to be industry and not broadcasters? And then we'll do the other way. Industry, and how about broadcasters? Okay, so good amount of both, but heavily weighted toward broadcast. Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
You're the moderator. I don't want to step over, but
you say whatever you want. I mean, almost whatever you want.
Your job.
Bacon after dark
Yeah,
now.
You're gonna regret that.
That wasn't thought out. And so
I just want to echo agreement with what we were just talking about. As a broadcaster, I've experienced all of that, what you said, to be true, both of you, that developers want to talk to us, respond well. And that's actually a change. Like 4 years ago, and Nick will agree with me here, I think, that 4 years ago, people, like developers, didn't really necessarily know what Twitch was.
Yeah, yes.
And a lot of when we were coming to conventions, a lot of what we had to do was say, hey, there's this new platform called Twitch that can really introduce people to your games. You're going to want to pay attention to this. And we would get a lot of suspicion, like, you're asking me for what? And who are you? And why would I give you a code? And like that sort of stuff. But we're way past that point now. I think everybody just understands that it's a really natural synergy.
That word is really hard for us, for the old men in the room. It was so hard for us.
We play games.
We had to walk through snow uphill both ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, like honestly, it was. I remember like 4 years ago going to PAX and going up to even indie booths and handing them my card, which had all my information, and they were just like, "So, which outlet do you work for?" Like,
right.
Was it Kotaku, or like they would think I was traditional journo press, And it was really awkward. Like, no, I make videos about video games. And they're like, oh, yeah. Well, that's Melissa. She's the first person that ever believed in me in this industry right there. Yeah. She's the first person that got it, that got that this synergy is useful and it's good for both of us.
So, but yeah, I think we're well past that point. Everybody kind of knows what Twitch is and is anxious to work. And I have experienced that concept that you were talking about of developers really paying attention to who's playing the game and who's talking about it. So if you are a streamer, if you're going to play a game, follow that game's Twitter, because that game has a Twitter.
Yep.
Follow it, and then when you're going live, tweet and include that Twitter account when you're going live. Odds are pretty darn good that someone from the company, even if they don't necessarily say hi, probably someone's going to come to your stream, because they actually do that. And and I can't even tell you how many times I've been playing a game and devs will just show up and just start putting codes in the chat room, for giveaways or whatever. Or if you say, and even better, take it one step farther, plan in advance. To be like, okay, hey guys, I'm going to be playing your game on Friday for 4 hours, and I'd love to do a couple of giveaways if you're okay with that. Like, there are so few companies that are going to be like, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah, it's just flat out a great idea, just period.
And if you are a developer, then do all of that. That's
right.
what you should be doing.
If you're not doing
does your game have a Twitter account, or your company? You better have one. Do that.
Literally, just you want to don't be. I see a lot of developers thinking that they need to be stingy, like they need to I can't give away loads of codes. Like if you have a Steam game, I know how many Steam codes you have to give out.
Infinity.
It's ridiculous to if somebody is streaming your game and they've got dozens of people watching. then jump in that chat and get involved, because then the chances are, and it personalizes your company as well, right? It turns you from being this sort of, just a name, just like some company name, some developer, into a name that people go, oh yeah, those developers are really cool. They actually care about Twitch, and they actually care about streamers, and they're checking streamers out, and they know who streamers are. It makes a massive difference, it really does.
And then kind of sort of moving from that into the next section is, fortunately, Bacon wrote an amazing Medium article like right before this, and I'm thrilled that he's here because I'm going to make him go over all of it. But I stole right from the article is deal with people, not with products. And so when you're dealing with a company, even the big companies, the person you're dealing with on the other end is a person, and that person is going to be at this studio, he's going to be at another studio, or she, whoever. Get to know them, find out who they are, and instead of dealing with everything as a product or all about the codes or whatever, make that connection, make that friendship happen, and you're building from the future. Even if you don't do anything there, you're building those connections and you're networking for the future. And it's not even like this ulterior motive thing to do. Again, everybody in the industry, everybody that's here loves to be here. It doesn't matter if you're at a big studio or a little studio, or if you're a streamer or you're a gamer. It's just there's so much passion in the industry. So talking to somebody who loves all the things that you love is really easy. It's super easy to get past the veneer of, oh, you're working for company X, or this is your position, or what's your title, and just deal with a person. And I mean, I may have summarized all of it, but I'm going to make you I'm sure I missed bits.
No, I can't stress that. It's the same exact stuff applies to just talking about networking in general, because broadcasters a lot of times will ask me questions about like, how do I network? How do I connect to other streamers? And how do I connect to developers? And man, I think looking at it that way is overcomplicating it. Yeah. You're just talking to people, and it's so easy to see like brand and get stuck behind viewing company X as some sort of big nameless, faceless. It's just like when streamers are trying to get partnered and they rage against Twitch because Twitch isn't doing enough to help me, and all that sort of stuff. Like, Twitch is people, right? Like, and a lot of the nasty things that streamers might say about Twitch in that scenario, and I will come to Twitch's defense, and it's because I know the people, like I know them personally, and they care just as much as you do about your broadcast and about your being successful and all that. So anyway, same exact thing for working with developers in this industry. Like, networking is just the process of friendship, like being real, talking to actual real people, and keeping in mind that if you're all in the same industry, people tend to move around. It's one of the points I made in the article. Like, that's why you don't want to focus too much on like how important a person is, or like, I want to talk to them because they're the important guy at this company. Like, everybody is important. You don't know anyone that you talk to. They might be a peon in this indie company today, but maybe next year they get hired and they're now head of PR for Activision or something. Like, and if you're already their friend, then you don't have to suddenly be like, oh, you're important now, I'm going to come talk to you. Like, that's not going to go well.
And having been in that position where I just started out. I didn't even start out populating levels in City of Heroes. I started out fixing broken populated levels in City of Heroes. So it was like as entry as you get for level design. But if somebody reached out to me and was like, hey, you have a code? Well, the answer is no, but you're really excited about this? I'm going to get up and walk to the desk of the person that does have the codes and be like, hey, this person's really excited, and can I have a code to give them? And like, yeah, here you go. And then you walk back, and then it's like, ooh, I got to help somebody. That was really cool. Like, so even if they're not the person who holds the keys, like, they work with the person that holds the keys, and they know them, right? And yeah, you can get a lot done if you just kind of forget about. I mean, obviously, you want to find the best person that you can that is most empowered to help you help support you while you're doing the game. But just talking to anybody in the studios is a big bonus. And it's fine. It's fine. So we're good. Awkward pauses they help make the rest of the show feel good. Let it sink in. Yeah, just let it.
We're all thinking.
Yeah.
But profound.
There's another sort of myth that is fortunately getting sort of dispelled now. that is kind of the opposite of that developers only care about big streamers. And that is absolutely not true. And fortunately, I've got on the next slide, it's really small because I couldn't find a high-res version of it, so I'm just going to have to kind of describe it, I think. But it's not always about big numbers. And so this is one part of an article that Danny Hernandez wrote at Twitch. He does a lot of data analysis. I think they call him a data scientist at Twitch. But he wrote this big article about the impact of Twitch viewing and what it does for game sales. And he's very careful in the article to talk about, okay, well, it's not, this isn't like super scientific. This is all sort of, correlation right now. But one of the things that I thought was fascinating, and it lines up with everything that I've seen, is that the influence of mid-tier or even low-tier streamers on a percentage basis is incredibly high. And so as a developer, developers, they care about everybody streaming. It doesn't matter how big you are or how many people are watching. And the stuff that we're starting to find out is that it actually works that way. And it's, I think he was talking about it's a smaller community, it's more tight-knit, it's more like you hanging out on your couch with your 10 buddies, and if you show them a game, they're much more likely than if you're, in an auditorium with 5,000 people and there's chat is going crazy. And so you can have, as a small streamer or as a mid-sized streamer, you have a lot of influence. You have a lot of value. Besides the fact that just, developers want people playing their games, and that's just cool. We're starting to get numbers out of that.
I think we already saw it happening on YouTube as well before it was happening on Twitch, where people like PewDiePie, at first when PewDiePie would play a game, this was like 3 or 4 years ago, he'd play a game and the game would explode. Like Flappy Bird, for example, he played Flappy Bird, and we all know what happened with Flappy Bird. But then more recently, I then heard many, many more stories where he'd then play a game, and the developer would say, I literally saw like a minimal spike. And it's like, from what I can tell, that happens is that when someone like that has such a gigantic audience, it's not that they're less influential, they're still incredibly influential. It's just that their audience is more sort of, it's more spread out and it's more just sort of all over the place. Whereas with the, kind of like the mid-tier streamers, people who have sort of tens of thousands of followers on Twitch, you're finding that these people have, a lot of the time, have incredibly focused audiences who will follow them off a cliff. And so when they play a game and they really love that game, then they're people who are watching might actually go and buy the game instead of all just dropping memes in the chat and then running away from the fire. So it's definitely something that like I've seen when we've been talking to Twitch streamers. We'll definitely see. You still get where there's certain big streamers who are still incredibly influential, and you'll still see like some good numbers of those kind of streams. But a lot of the time, it's when you get lots of the mid-tier streamers. They're the ones who are actually really making people care about games and caring about the developers and the publishers behind the games as well, really. So.
I agree completely, and that comes to a point that I'm really feel strongly about. But a good evidence of what you're talking about, where smaller communities tend to be more tight-knit and have more influence, if you will, a great measure of that is looking at subscriber badges in a chat room, right? And this certainly was true for me too. When I was first partnered, much smaller channel than I am today, back then, it seemed like 80–90% of the people talking in my chat room were subscribers, right? And that's a representation of that very tight-knit, small community. And people would regularly think that it was in sub-only mode just because everybody talking was a sub, right? But now, today, I have more subscribers than I did then, but percentage-wise of people talking versus how many subs are in the chat room is way smaller. Like, drastically different. So that alone is a good representation of that. But for me, the core point here is that broadcasters have a tendency to devalue themselves, and I want you all to not do that, right? You even if your community is a modest size, you have something that game developers want, and it's a very natural fit, and you shouldn't be apologetic. If you're proposing something to a game developer and it's not a good fit for them, they'll say no. And that's okay. That's business. Maybe you're wanting to do something that they just aren't interested. That's okay. They're not going to think bad of you or whatever. They'll just say no. But, odds are they're going to say yes if you're being reasonable, and you don't have to feel guilty. I've talked to streamers that literally will feel. I asked for a key and I felt so bad.
No,
why? Don't feel guilty.
You
it's
absolutely
okay.
get that.
You have value. You have something that they want. You're doing them a favor. Don't be ashamed of it.
Yeah. So speaking about that in particular, you need to know what your audience is. So if you're someone who streams a lot of horror games and there's some sort of kid-friendly Minecraft-esque clone, usually that means that your audience probably won't mesh very well. You won't have the same viewership, you won't have the same sort of drive of people wanting to back that game either on Kickstarter or buy it from a referral key from you, or just simply go to Steam and buy it there too. So as a smaller caster, YouTuber, I think one of the best ways to figure out what your worth is within this industry is to really look at what you are entertaining people with. Are you mostly like a horror game streamer? Are you all about indie devs? Do you like playing the latest and greatest releases and you're like raging or going crazy or something? Know what your audience is and try to narrow your requests to that, because there are definitely times where some people who don't stream a lot, don't make YouTube videos a lot or something, they'll request games just over and over and over again. And we all kind of talk and we all know like those certain names or people who ask for those things and don't really do anything with that. And that's fine, because that's something called like earned influencer marketing. So if you ask for a key and there's no other sort of contractual obligation between you guys, especially when it comes to getting paid for something like this, you can try out the game off stream, and if you don't think it's a good fit, it looked like it from the trailer, but you don't think you can make it work, don't feel super guilty about that, but at the same time, try not to make that a habit. Be very particular about who you focus your attention on. Who you put your time into writing an email to. And yes, it's really important not only to have your Twitch channel, but also a updated Twitter and a good email address that you check hopefully daily or something, just specifically for Twitch, just for your content, which we've talked about before. But I really want to drive that home because it's incredibly important. Also at the same time, don't sell out. Like if you're not someone who plays a lot of AAA titles, but you really want this one that comes out or something, but it's totally against what you usually cover on your channel, don't feel like because someone comes up to you for a sponsorship or goes like, oh, go to this event, unless you feel like you can make it work for your content, or if you want to make a shift into a new genre or something like that, just because it's an opportunity doesn't mean it's the right one for you.
Yeah, that leads in perfectly to one of the best things that you can do is do a little sleuthing about the game and about the studio that you're dealing with, because all studios do stuff differently. I mean, again, we're very small. We're active on Twitch. We do all sorts of giveaways. We've made a special code that you can only get from streamers that gives you a cool color. So we do all sorts of bells and whistles. So you can come to me with like a crazy idea, and I will listen. Because we've done crazy stuff. We like it, we love it. But that's not gonna be the same as like if you go to Ubisoft, right? And they're gonna have much more strict policies. They're gonna have much more planned
They
out.
got lots of lawyers and stuff.
Yeah, they have,
Red
Speaking
tape,
of that,
bureaucracy.
there's something called the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, and even if you get, I know, I'm sorry, I've done this to both of them for Uncharted 4 and Ratchet and Clank this summer. So basically, if you are, especially the bigger companies, because it's easier for this FTC to go after the bigger companies for not following this thing. You are influencers, no matter how small you are, no matter how often you do it. And when you make a video and you have gotten a product, which is something as simple as a review key for this game, you need to clarify that you have gotten that product for free. In your description, in your title, in a channel command, you saying it at the beginning of the stream, whenever you're taking a break, you have to say something like, thanks, by the way, to Sony and PlayStation for providing me with this Uncharted 4 copy on the PlayStation 4. And as long as you say that or have that written down, you follow the certain rules within the FTC. And it mostly is for the United States and the people who live there. But if you're dealing with companies that are based in the United States, you should also help follow their laws if you want to continue to have good relations with those people.
Declaration of that sort of thing, super important, and right alongside of that is also tax law. It's the kind of thing that will vary by country, but sometimes receiving a free gift that has a retail value is still taxable, and so you might have to declare that free thing on your taxes later. So, get a professional and figure that stuff out, because free sometimes has strings attached. Especially if it's a physical product, like if they're mailing you a collector's edition that costs $200, well, you might need to pay the government for that later because it has actual value.
Yeah, and that's gonna. Not the legal stuff. Legal stuff, yes. Find somebody who's an actual legal
Consult
person.
a professional.
There is a legal panel sometime this weekend.
There is.
So.
Yeah, and I know there was a tax panel too.
Yes.
Or is.
Yes.
I don't remember.
There's a lot of really great stuff going on.
But a lot of this stuff just varies from company to company, and you just have to kind of figure out, how does that company work, and how are they like to do things, and that will just help you tailor what you're doing to make it easy to say yes to. Like I guarantee, if you talk to me and you're like, hey, I would love to play Brawlhalla, and I've got a community, and they think it would really be cool. Can I give you can I get some community colors? That's the thing we do all the time. I can just yes, without even thinking. And so that's a way that you can, just by looking a little bit at what our activities are, you can tailor that to make it just super likely that I'm thrilled to help you out.
Maybe a thing to just add to that is that with a lot of smaller companies and smaller indie publishers and developers, they maybe don't have so much of a budget. So if I know that a lot of stuff goes on with the AAA games, sort of the sponsorships, etc. It might be more. It might happen more that if you're trying to approach smaller developers with this kind of thing, saying, "Hey, maybe I can do this tournament, and maybe you can sponsor me, and maybe give me money for this." You might hit more brick walls there because I don't think many smaller developers are going to have put that into their budget, let alone actually have that money to give you.
Gauge them by the size of their booth at PAX.
Yeah, that's a good.
If they have a tiny booth,
That's
and
the thing,
they're not going to pay you to play.
That's a good. But as a side note to that, it's not an issue that is or should be taboo. Like, if that's what you're looking for, if you're looking for sponsorship, don't dance around it. Bring it up. Make sure it's you should make sure it's the right thing for you and your channel, and because it changes how the channel works. It changes what you're doing and what you're invested in. But if that's something that you're after pursuing, bring it up. Don't be afraid to bring it up.
Yeah,
talk about it.
Realize that it really depends on the type of exposure and influence that you do have, and sometimes it might be just a few months before you feel comfortable enough to start saying, hey, I recently got partnered, or I'm not partnered yet, but I pull in this an amount of viewers because I play FPSs. I would love to get sponsored by this game that just came out. What can we do? Do you have affiliate links? Do you have a sponsorship program? Are you guys going to be at some PAX, some TwitchCon? I would love to work at your booth as a streamer, et cetera, et cetera. So doing those kind of things, realizing that it's freelance work. You are your own boss. You are your own company, even if you're not officially like an LLC or incorporated or something like that. And freelancers, artists, PR people can all tell you, depending on each product, every single client, even within the same month, you might be doing similar work with one smaller dev and you have to lower your price point. But if you're working with a bigger AAA company or a bigger client, you can kind of raise how much you're worth. And it changes. Sometimes, like you guys have said, smaller companies might not be able to pay you, but they might be able to give you a lot more keys or a retweet.
Yeah.
But if it's a bigger AAA or mid-size thing, they might be able to say, hey, we have a few hours that you can stream at our booth at this convention, or hey, we'll send you a collector's edition, and slowly making those relationships, making sure it's not about, oh, the free stuff I can get, but more about like, I really like your product, I really have followed you since you've gone to this game developer and then this publisher, and I really believe in the work that you do. I would like to check out this new game that you're working on. Be very specific, because we all have the same amount of time and hours in a week. So don't waste people's time with generic email, just spam or something like that. Just be honest and specific about who you're talking to.
And one thing, just again, on the flip side of the being honest, you need to be open and expect that going that route, when you start going into sponsorship stuff, as opposed to being supported. Like, I can support people with keys, and you want interviews, and you want me to come by the stream and play with you. I can arrange for that stuff all day long, no problem. That's all assets that the studio just has, right? As soon as you go into sponsorship, where it's actually dollar value invested, that's a different person. So I'm going to have to hand you off to somebody who's going to do a lot of ROI and making sure that it's enough eyeballs versus what does that money there do versus that money spent on an advertising campaign through Twitter or something like that. So it changes the process. And I mean, I'm sure Bacon and Nick, I'm sure you've gone through like the lengthier processes like that when that happens. Is any
like, what's the question? Sorry.
No, I mean, do you have any like sort of
poor hearing,
just sort of stories about how different it is when you're doing like a traditional sponsorship versus just kind of a support thing? Or
yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, now I actually have like a manager that handles a lot of the real like sponsored stream type stuff. Makes it a little bit easier. But before that, it was tricky. I'm not terribly savvy with that kind of stuff, so they would like ask for like, what's your price? I'm like, I don't know how to value myself. That's the biggest part is
whatever
like
you want. Honestly,
exactly,
that's what it is.
And I mean, being a variety streamer is probably the best thing you could possibly do if you're trying to get into that avenue of sponsor, because then the floodgates are open and there are thousands of devs with different types of games that will fit in your channel in some way, shape, or form. And it's just a matter of obviously meeting them, getting them talking in your chat is always a good. If you're like a mid-tier, like Michael's talking about, a mid-tier streamer, that's the perfect like stream for developers, because they can jump in the chat and start talking. Yeah. If you go into like Gold Glove or Lyrics chat as a dev, like you just get swept away by chat spam, and so it's really hard to get personal with the audience, and that makes a big difference, like a huge difference.
And so kind of all of that sort of business stuff aside, somebody alluded to it earlier, I don't remember who said it, that or it was 4 years ago, but it's still kind of true today that developers didn't always understand Twitch. I think what's very true today is all developers love Twitch, or at least they know they should love Twitch. And they might not understand it, but that's where you can help enormously. Twitch. Twitch is something that you know your channels, you know how everything reacts. And there's a story I always kind of tell on myself about this. When one of the first big streamers we had stream us was Northern Lion, and he did the NLSS show, and we were like, oh my god, this is amazing, I can't wait. And we were out at a Battle and Brew, I think, for another event, and we were kind of watching it on our phones in between things, and by the end of that night I was like, oh yeah, there was like 5,000 people watching, and then by the end of it there's like 3,000 people, and chat was chat. It was scary. He's never going to talk to us again. And the next day I sent him, just out of follow-through-edness, I sent him an email. I said, hey, we saw that you played. That was so awesome. Thanks so much. We really enjoyed it. That was great. And his reply was, oh, it was awesome. Chat loved it. We're totally going to play it again. And I was like, I don't understand what happened. And that's because I wasn't used to his channel. I didn't know what. It turns out that's just the curve of his viewers during those hours. When he gets to the third game, they drop. It doesn't matter what the game is. And so your viewers and chat, and you can help developers understand that and everybody's chat is different. I mean, there are some global things, like you will probably run into developers that don't know what Kappa is. That number is getting smaller and smaller now, but it's true, and so you can kind of help that way. But and I think being true to your channel and being true to your chat is the best way that you can convince a developer that they should be working with you, because that's really what it's all about, right? Like, it's more, and again, more than the numbers. If somebody's engaged with their community and is really there and understands what they want and can come to a developer and say, here's what my community loves and I would love to do it. And if a developer has it in their power to facilitate that, then you bet they're going to do it.
I'm sorry. You go ahead. You go ahead.
You got a rock, paper, scissors?
Really quick, I mean, for some people, they are very nervous about talking to game devs or publishers, but they do a lot of charity streams. And that's something that you can bring up, like, hey, I really like your game. Look at the kind of drive that me and my community have built for this charity a few months ago, or vice versa. Maybe you've done something with game devs or publishers and you want to get involved in like a charity organization. So just being able to leverage what your exposure is and what your influence is, and really understanding how to market yourself. You can do that with anything as long as you know the right terminology and truthfulness to give to them.
I think from like a developer and publisher perspective, it's interesting because so many things in the games industry have this cycle where they start off down here and then they go up, and then people start to realize, and it goes, and it peaks, and then there's too many people and it crashes and burns. And that just happens over and over again. And I think with Twitch, we're still in the rising bit, which is the super exciting bit. We're still in the bit where, like more developers now, and it's happening very quickly. A year ago, there was still no developers still understood what Twitch was, even just 12 months ago. And now, many, many more do, but many more still don't. I still talk to so many developers every day who still, they've heard of this thing called Twitch, but they kind of don't really understand it. So if you are a developer, then now is when the last train is setting off. I think before the thing that happened, with YouTube before it, etc., happened, where it soon, give it another year, and every developer is going to be doing it, and that's amazing. That's just to clarify, that's absolutely amazing. If more games that have all the kind of Twitch stuff and more developers working with Twitch streamers is great. But if you are a smaller developer looking to sort of maybe integrate Twitch into your game and working with streamers, etc., now is the time when we're accelerating towards the everybody now knows what Twitch is thing. And you're more likely to kind of get lost, essentially. So it's really a time now when you want to be trying to talk to as many people as possible and not just putting it off like all of us do.
Yeah, and sort of tying in with that, one of the things developers love is special events, and anything different or weird, like. And I mean, sometimes they can be simple. Like, if you come to us, we're an online PvP game, and you're like, I want to run a tournament. That's great. I'm way more interested if you come to me and say you want to run a tournament for your viewers than if you say, I want to play the game. I mean, I'm still interested if you want to play the game. But if you pitch me like, I just want to
Can't play my game. No,
yeah,
it's not for you. Sorry.
Yeah, don't just play my game. That's no fun. But yeah, if you come with an idea, you're like, oh, my players, we like to do a play along and we want to do a tournament. And even if there's a twist like, oh, and if the players win, then I do something for the next week or anything like that, don't be afraid to pitch those, because it makes things more exciting and interesting. And like you're talking about, there's more and more people, more and more developers getting invested in Twitch, which is fantastic for streamers, right? It's going to be even easier to, you're going to have a common language with the developers. More people are going to understand. But anything that you can come up with that's a little bit different and cooler, it's more engaging, it's more exciting, and it'd be more likely for somebody to say yes to. And don't limit yourself. Come up with something super crazy. Come up with a pie in the sky idea. But have a simple one that that falls back, so that if the pie in the sky one is like, oh well, that's not really something we can do right now, it's a little complicated, and be like, oh okay, well here's this other idea. This is the other idea. This is the kind of the bare bones, but still really cool idea. But yeah, just don't limit yourself. People get excited.
I have a wonderful example of that in action. So a couple months ago, I did a 168-hour marathon for charity on my stream.
Holy cow.
I wasn't the only one involved. I feel really awkward receiving applause for that. This is not
Make a
about
donut,
me.
everybody.
But anyway, so yeah, it was to benefit St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Nick and I both went on it. Like the hospital invited us down and gave us a tour of the facility, and it was very touching. And I knew I needed to do something, right? So me and I'm part of a charity team called Gamers for Change, and so us as a team just decided to put our all into it. So my channel was live for 7 days straight. Not just me, like I had people switching out and stuff so I could sleep and whatnot. But anyway, so leading up to this, I was already planning it, this big crazy idea, right? And I was already planning it, and I went to a gathering of a friend of mine who's in the games industry, et cetera. Anyway, there was a bunch of games industry people there, and I was just talking to people, and one of the people that was there was a man by the name of Ryan Clark, who makes a game you may have heard of called Quillective the Necrodancer. Yeah. And I had just gotten off the airplane from Memphis that day, and so St. Jude was all in my head, and it's all I wanted to talk about. So I just, we were standing there with drinks and chatting, and I told Ryan about this crazy idea that I had to do this marathon, and something about it, and me just talking about the hospital, it just touched him. Like he was moved by it, and he just nodded and just was like, I want to help. I want to do something. And so we talked, and he ended up saying that he wanted to dedicate 1 day of sales of his game to the charity. And so we ended up using that as the finale of the week. So the final day of the marathon, all the sales of Quillective the Necrodancer, was tallied up, and it was like we were on like hour 172 or something, and at midnight, and he called in, and the initial goal was 50,000 to raise 50,000. We were at like 95,000, like just scraping 100K. And I got on a call with Ryan, and he hit the button and submitted the donation. It was $6,700, and put us over the edge for 100K. And it was like one of the most amazing moments of my life, right? Like we were all in tears, and it was just unbelievable. And it all came because we had this crazy idea. We shared it with a developer, and he said, "I'm down. Let's do this." And and it made it's. I don't know, I still get goosebumps thinking about it, and I made a crazy promise that I would legally change my name to bacon_donut if we hit 100K, and so I kind of hate Ryan in a little way, but I guess he put us over 100K. But yeah, so that's an example. Like very often developers, if you have just some crazy idea, talk about it, and you never know. The worst they can say is no, right? And that's not so bad.
That's right. And no is not bad. No doesn't mean that they don't like you or they don't like your idea. No just means it's not a thing that's going to work out right now. And you just file that away, and maybe you try again later, or you just come up with a new plan with another game that you love. Or don't be afraid of that. And again, not to just go back to it, but don't undervalue what you are and what you do. Every developer cares about every Twitch streamer. It sounds crazy.
Just find the right
totally
fit.
True.
And don't take it personally. That's one of my biggest advice for broadcasters. If a company doesn't want to work with you or doesn't want to go with your idea, or if a company gives an opportunity to another broadcaster and not to you, don't make it about you, right? It's business ultimately. Like, it's not personal. They're not saying that you suck or that you're not good enough for them or any of these. Like, we care so much about our streams and our community that we tend to project those sorts of feelings, and it's just not. It's not like that, man. It's not personal. Don't get mad because you're gonna become blind to future opportunities if you do that.
Yeah. And so we could talk up here all day about this kind of stuff, and we're a little longer than I wanted to be before we got to questions, but please ask questions. That's not an invitation, that's a demand. Somebody
There's a microphone back there.
Up the microphone back there. And questions for any of us?
Hi, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Philomena, and I actually don't have a question, sorry. I have to say something to the streamers here. We are some random developers from Switzerland. We actually flew here 17 hours just to meet you guys. So you see...
Perfect.
So you see, you're really valuable to us, and you really don't have to be afraid or anything to come talk to us. We are the ones shivering, standing here right now. So please just come. We're going to allow ourselves to spread some cards. If anyone wants a key and wants to play and wants to have us in your stream, just send us a mail. Send a mail to any developer. Anyone is really happy to hear from you.
Yeah. Perfect. I'm going to be really disappointed if there isn't giant lines of people meeting developers after this.
Thank you. Hi, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Daniel, and somebody said something earlier about, tweeting out to the developers and then they might pop into your stream, and that reminded me of a time when my game Paperbound was being shown by a stream, and I popped in and I was in the chat and I was cracking jokes and kind of making fun of the streamer, giving him some shit, and that was one of the most fun things I had done in a while when I did it, and I really loved it. So it's fun not just for business, for developers, but actually get in there, see people playing the game and engaging with these people, interacting in this way, and it's really cool, and I'm wondering if you guys have any interesting stories like that. And then I also want to tag on, it's great, I would love to talk to streamers and see what would you want from the game, from the developer to help you in your stream, because you know what your audience is like better than we do, so the more we can get information from you about that, the more we can help you have a better stream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll tag on to his question. When coming into a streamer stream, how do you make sure that people know you're a dev without getting laughed off? Because I've had that happen before.
Yeah, there's two important issues. The way I see it, there is that one is establishing credibility. It can be hard, and second is culture clash, because it's common for developers, well-intentioned, to kind of behave the way that it's okay in one person's chat room, but the culture is different in another chat room. And it's not like, if you're giving a developer crap, maybe he's cool with that, but maybe this other streamer is going to be like, who is this douchebag coming into my chat room? In the culture clash, right? Or like a League of Legends chat, very different from a Minecraft stream. Like, you're going to have a different, so I don't know, establishing credibility, I think, to me, that's the reverse of what you were talking about a broadcaster needing to have like a business email on their Twitter account or something so that you can be verified. If you're going to be representing your company in a Twitch chat room, then your Twitch name probably should be accessible somewhere. Like, you should be able to say, go to our Twitter and the name of our Twitch account is there, or go to our company page and it's
organize your branding.
Maybe you're on a personal account.
Organize your branding. I know so many people who have their Twitch is one thing, their Twitter is another thing, their email is something also random, and it's just like, how does anyone keep track of what you do? How do you even keep track of it?
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, so you guys had mentioned affiliate programs and sponsorships and other things like that. Maybe I just haven't done enough research into it, but for you guys, what does it actually mean to be sponsored or to be sponsoring?
Oh, God, I love that question.
Yeah, that's a little difficult because I think there's different degrees of sponsorship, but I think sponsorship is a little bit more permanent. You are partnered with a certain brand or game in order to represent them and create content for a specific amount of time within a contract. And if it renews or not is totally dependent on the conversations that you guys have had. There is a panel that's more specific about sponsorships and not how to sell out and things later on tomorrow, I believe. That would go more into the nitty-gritty of it.
Cool. Thank you.
I mean, in my mind, and not everybody's going to necessarily agree with me, but in my mind, a sponsorship is when a company is paying you money to represent their brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like, if I'm going to put a company's logo on my broadcast, right? They're paying for that because I'm representing their brand. We're meshing our brands together. That's a premium thing. You don't get that for free. That's a sponsorship. If they're offering you an affiliate code, to me, that's not a sponsorship at all. It's more of a partnership. I'm not a fan, personally, I'm not a fan of affiliate codes in general, just because that makes me as a broadcaster more of a commissioned salesperson, which is not the business I want to be in, So, but that's a push button topic for me. The whole people like, oh, someone sent me a headset, so now I'm sponsored by them. Like,
no, you're not.
That's not what that means.
Hi, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Sharia, and I was wondering, so...
Could you get a little closer to the mic, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
Hope that's better now.
Yes.
Yes.
So at these cons, I find it pretty easy to actually approach developers, talk to them. It's like it's like they're people and all of that. My thing is like, I was wondering how to go about these relationships like after the con, how to approach them, like, or like what is a good time to email them again about the game if it's releasing later on?
Sure. So, I mean, I think that it really depends if like the game is coming out that month or something, or maybe they're in early access and it's not going to come out till later 2017. Just starting up the conversation, say, hey, last week, I hope you got over your jet lag. Hope, you didn't get con cred or something. Just to let you know, we exchanged business cards on Friday morning, or if you can't remember that, you could just say at TwitchCon. And I really liked your game. I was wondering if we could still do this thing that we talked about, like, can I have a few giveaway codes, or I would love to be, have my video embedded on your site when your game comes out, so when I'm streaming it, like, people will be able to know that I'm one of the streamers that they can go to and click on or something like that. So yeah, I start emailing people, I think maybe about 7 days or so after the con, because it gives people enough time to kind of relax and like not be super bombarded.
Catch up on email.
Yeah, catch up on your email and like just get organized again. And even if the game has already been out or is releasing soon or isn't releasing for another few years, just starting the conversations at any time is really important.
Yeah, but that's just to reinforce it. Trade business cards.
Yeah.
And then no matter what, email that person whatever timing you think is right. It's 7 days, 2 days, the day after, whatever.
Whatever works for you, yeah.
Email them for sure. And if you don't hear
Email them
back,
directly after you meet them for the first time.
That's right.
Like while you're talking to them, email them.
Yeah, you're typing an email while you're talking.
Yeah.
Don't
Take a selfie and attach it.
Don't actually do that though, because people have actually done that to me. I've literally been at parties where people have emailed me 10 minutes later. Please God, don't do that. That is scary. That's creepy. Okay, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. I was just gonna jump on and say, like, don't worry about it. Like, I agree with absolutely everything said, but also just don't worry. Like, we're all human beings. Like, we understand. If you email me, I'm gonna get to your email. It's best just to not get fixated on it.
See, that to me is a manifestation of the same thing I mentioned earlier about not being apologetic for offering to work with a company.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing, right? You have value. You're doing them a favor by reaching out to that developer, and you don't need to have anxiety about, am I bothering them? Or that's what I mean. Like, you're doing them a favor. And if what you're proposing isn't right, they'll say no, and that's okay. But don't be afraid to reach out. They'll most likely be appreciative.
And also don't be afraid to follow up on the follow-up. Like, if you email somebody right after a con, there's a very good chance the email gets buried.
Exactly.
If you don't hear back for 7 days or a week, just send another email and see if you get a reply, right? I mean, don't do it like every day. Don't do it every day and every day and every day. But yeah, definitely follow up, and then those partnerships and those relationships will just kind of grow from that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, what's your name?
Hi, my name's Chandler. Also, the well-hung Asian on Twitch. I just want to say that because I get to say that. Sorry. All right. Yeah, my question for you guys is, how do you handle like developers mostly? Like, how do you handle like criticism or opinions, negative or positive, when streamers stream their games, and then like for you streamers, how does that affect your relationship, or does it even matter that much?
So I mean, on the developer side, it's tough. I mean, you put your product out there, and it's something that you love, and as a developer, you are usually really, really aware of every single wart that's on that project. But eventually, it goes out there, right? But you get to the point where you want people to look at your game, and you want people to evaluate it and play it, and some people are going to like it, and some people aren't going to like it, and you just kind of get used to that, and you kind of roll it in. Actually, I have one of my favorite examples of that is, I don't remember what convention I was at, but somebody who dealt a lot with Vinesauce got him to come play our game and was really pushing him to play our game, and we were like, yeah, great, yeah, let's get him to play the game, and he did a first impression or a let's play of it afterwards, and it was not great. He did not like the game, and he started, but we loved it. we loved it. Even something that started as not so awesome, his initial reaction was he was not having fun, and he liked other games that were, in our genre better. And he's not a guy that pulls punches. He's a very honest reviewer. And as he was playing it, he said everything that he didn't like, but then he also said the things that he did like. And he said, hey, this isn't for me, but if you liked these things that were in there that I pointed out, that's great. And if these other things aren't a problem for you, maybe it's fine. Maybe you should. I would not tell you to not give it a shot. And so that was, at first there was a little bit of shell shock, like, ooh. But but even that, I loved it because he played it and he wasn't having a good time. But by the end of it, he was like, maybe, yeah, you could like this. I don't know.
In my experience, reaction to that sort of thing is very widely different.
Yeah.
Because some developers, it's such a love project, right? They're pouring their soul into this game, and if you speak ill of it, you are personally insulting them, and they're going to burn your card and never talk to you again. Like, that happens. It does happen, right? And there's other developers who are just eagerly wanting their product to be the best that it can be, and they want every little bit that they can, and they're going to do that, get a new build to you, and respond. It can be very different. So my advice to broadcasters is to be honest.
Yes.
Don't pull punches because you think they're watching. Be honest,
yes.
but try to be constructive. If you're going to say, I don't like this thing about the game, try to explain why. Why don't you like it? What could make it better, and that sort of thing. And if they decide to get all offended, then that's on them. And
Very quickly, it's the same as being a streamer or content creator yourself. Like, you want constructive criticism, even if it's negative. You don't want it to be insulting or trolly. So treat game developers and publishers the exact same way, other brands and everything. Like, I tried this headset, but unfortunately after 6 months, this and this happened. I don't think I can recommend it, but, be cordial but constructive.
As opposed to whoever made this headset must be an idiot.
Right, yeah.
To design it like this, they have to be stupid.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
But do be honest. Don't try to, that's, I think most people.
The one thing I would add, though, is that, it's criticism is always great, right? Just other than super, like we've been saying. But if sometimes you have to understand that if we get people saying oh, why don't you just do this with the game? Why don't you just take the single player game, just make it multiplayer? That'll make it. You'll sell so many more copies.
Restructure the entire video game because
sometimes you have to understand that if you say to a developer, hey, just add X, Y, and Z, and it'll be easy.
I really
a
want
lot
to
of
make
the
a
time
No
it's
Man's
not
Sky
that
joke
easy.
right now.
I just will fix your game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, here's how to
Seems
fix
to
your
work.
game. I've written you a 5-point plan. We sometimes have to just very politely explain that it might not be so possible. And some developers might not do that in a good way. I mean, we've seen sometimes some developers go nuts on Steam forums or whatever. That's just one thing to kind of keep in mind in this conversation, that if you're going to go to a developer and say, just do this, then sometimes it's not as easy as that, really. So.
If you've never made a game, you shouldn't assume that you know how to make games.
Okay, we've got time for one more question, and then we've got to head out.
Hi.
Hello. I'm a game developer, and I also stream game development for the last 4 years. And so I like to think I know something about Twitch. But even with that, I still have a hard time trying to find streamers who would be interested in streaming my game. And I wonder, do you have any suggestions on how to find people?
So there's middle people that you can also talk to that if it's difficult or too time consuming for you to be able to do it yourself, they're called influencer relations managers, and that's what I do. But I think what's really important is actually figure out, so here's my business card. I think what's really important is find out what kind of genre your game is in, or what was your inspiration for making your game, and then literally look up that game on Twitch, YouTube, Hitbox, Beam, and you'll find past broadcasts, you'll find highlights of people who have done it in the last few years or few months or even weeks, and then try to reach out to those people and say, hey, personalize it. Say, I know that you played Crypt of the Neko Dancer a few weeks ago, and I am recently developing a game that's a little bit similar to that. Or, I know that you played this, and one of the developers have moved on to my studio, and we would love to have you support our product again like you have done before. It's very time consuming. There's a reason why there are departments of people within AAA titles or people who do it freelance or something like that, because it's a liaison. It's a lot of relationship building, and streamers and YouTubers and everyone have to trust those who contact them and say, hey, I think this game is good for your stream, because they get bombarded with emails and tweets and people coming to their channel all the time saying, play this game. It's a mobile iOS game. Okay, that's great. I've never played that before. Why are you coming to me? You have to know the audience, and it's very time consuming. It takes a lot of effort to do.
All right.
Does that help?
Yes, I have done some of that before,
Okay.
such as going to other games and
Yeah.
looking up their past broadcasts. But
Okay.
I still find it difficult to
It
find
is.
people. And then also, whenever I do find people, oftentimes streamers don't reply back.
No, absolutely not. I know.
That happens. Yeah.
My inbox is filled with Steam codes that I'm never going to redeem.
I couldn't get him to
Yeah.
reply about questions about the panel. So.
Oh, God, yeah. I was talking to him last night. We're on a panel tomorrow? Yes.
It's absolutely true.
Thank you for your question. I hate to end it here, but you can ambush us outside.
Yes,
I don't know what
please.
anybody else is doing, but
I have a
Please.
signing, so
Yeah,
I have to go.
You can ambush me. Thank you for coming, and thanks Bacon Donut, Jesse Rich, Mike Rose, Eat My Addiction. Thank you very, very much.